good evening, and welcome to the CASAA update for the week of 9/28/2015. Hi, Alex. How are you this evening?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm very good. So what interesting things have been happening this week?
Well, I'm looking at this now just
Okay.
because it's a thick piece of legal writing, but
Mm.
the FDA released. Um, is this the title? Clarification of when products made or derived from
Yes.
tobacco are regulated as drugs, devices, or combination products.
Yeah.
Amendments to regulations regarding intended uses.
hmm They've made it as clear as mud for everybody who reads it, too.
If I think that I understand this, I must be missing something.
Well, I think my just quick run through, because I didn't really sit down and read it because it's FDA stuff, and I think I know what they're trying to do anyway. But my quick read through was it kind of seemed like they were looking for a way to take
You're still
part
there?
of the e-cig market. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
I got you now. I hear you
Okay.
now.
Okay. My just quick read through the document looked like they were looking for a way to take part of the market and classify it as drug delivery devices again.
I guess I don't. Obviously, this should I should preface anything I say with the statement that everybody's reviewing this, and obviously there's another. I believe there's a 60-day comment period. Did I get that
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
there's time for us to put something together if it's even necessary. I kind of walked away from this thinking that they were just using more words to further clarify the point that you can't market this as you can't market e-cigarettes as a cessation device.
Right.
And I think further, I think some people have kind of been skirting that line of, you know, suggesting that their customers gradually lower their nicotine level over time,
Right.
or using marketing saying, something as blatant as quit smoking, start vaping.
Right.
It's a There's a nuance there, but they even give examples of, like, I mean, they even get into the whole kind of stating that there are code words, like satisfying is code for this product has enough nicotine. It's like, um,
Yeah.
it was kind of an interesting read that they acknowledge that and then say that, so you have to say, satisfying, not, you know talk about it in sort of clinical ways.
Right.
um, it's To me, it further illustrated this sort of weird cat and mouse game that this agency is playing with tobacco.
Well, yeah. And I think we're looking at a time now coming up where they're actually worried about the 2016 elections and what it's going to do to the makeup of, like, the House and the Senate and even the White House, because I really think you're going to start to see a big push for this sort of thing. You know what I mean? I think they're going to try to regulate as much as they absolutely can while they still can.
Yeah, I guess the sentiment is that if things are Republican controlled, then I guess the agency may find themselves without so much power to regulate, or find themselves up against a Congress that will do things like defund their tobacco control efforts or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that would certainly hurt my feelings. Um, you know, um, we do actually spend a lot of money on it, and I think the way the government is handing out grants now is kind of unethical and sneaky. That's just how it reads to me. I don't imagine, let me put it this way. I don't imagine any of the researchers that I believe are ethical could get a government grant to study vaping, put it that way.
Yeah, well, um, so suffice to say, the big brains are taking a look at this document a little bit closer and seeing if there's any need for us to take action. But yeah, that's that. I think that between, I guess we didn't, was it last week that we didn't do this?
Yeah, we couldn't. Skype
Because
nodes were
yeah,
down.
Skype was being difficult. So
Yeah.
between the last time that we had this little get together and now, um, we put out another email reminder to everyone. There were several things for people to take advantage of, and I should probably have prepped this and gotten that ready to remind everybody. But it's just
The Consumer Report story was pretty bad.
yeah. I don't read Consumer Reports. I tend to get a little bit more value out of actual consumer feedback on products that I'm interested in buying. So I just read the reviews. I'm not necessarily the most scrupulous consumer when it comes to stuff. I fully admit that I allow myself to be drawn in by bright, shiny things, and if it's the right color and doesn't break after a couple months, then I'll probably buy it. But I actually had to look up, whether or not Consumer Reports was still something that people thought was important. And to some extent, yeah, they've got like 7 million readers, and people do care Consumer Reports does carry some weight. So for them to, I mean, this was subpar for even, your typical anti-vaping propaganda. This was like we read one study and like it was bad. So, don't do the vape. That's
It was really.
That's not a product review. That's not in-depth reporting by any stretch of the imagination. There are like crappy local news stories that describe, what a 2008 Sigalike device looks like, and that are more thoroughly researched than what Consumer Reports put out.
It was bad.
But yeah, the last time I checked, and actually the last time I checked, and the last time I saw somebody mention the count of the comments on that article, when I checked, it was at 1,000, and then somebody came back, a couple hours later, and there was 200 more. So I haven't even looked at it recently, but people really jumped all over that. So that was a good response, and thanks to everybody who participated. Yeah, that was number 2 on the list, and we usually wrap up by saying support this bill, but I did want to just remind everybody that I actually went and made a flyer, and we're using that fun QR code. So if you get that scanner app on your phone, you can just point and do it. It takes you right to the send an email engagement. But no matter how digital the world gets, we still got to do things with flyers and posters and mail. We're not, I don't think we're ever, well, I'm not going to say ever, but we're certainly not in a position to afford a direct mail campaign. But every vape shop in the country should have one of these flyers up somewhere. And I don't care if you don't like the flyer that I made, that's fine. Just take the link and the QR code and slap it on something. If, hey, here, do this and support vaping. If that's what you think is appropriate, then grab it and share it, and everybody that comes through your shop should be exposed to this opportunity. So
just don't ask me to write it because it'll offend people.
Go ahead. Absolutely go ahead, Janie. I'd love to see what you come up with. I mean, as long as there's not like dancing naked girls, I think we're fine, right?
Yeah, there definitely would not be that, Alex.
Okay, then we're good. We're totally good. So, what else did we get? We've got 2 days left. If you have not submitted a comment on the advance notice of proposed rulemaking, which was about nicotine exposure warning, shower-resistant packaging, you still have until the 30th to get that done. And that should, we promoted that several times. So there is a link to that somewhere. And everybody, it's 70 or 62,000 people got an email last week. So if you didn't check your emails, go back and look. It's there. The other thing is not necessarily something I've quite figured out whether or not we're going to do anything about, but people in Indiana, as if Indiana hasn't been through enough, there is a study committee getting together on October 6th. I'm not sure if it's public comment. We got this from a friend who typically can they can afford to get in on things like this. Not to imply that you have to buy your way in, but these are people who have access to lobbyists, so they can get themselves invited. But this is a interim study committee to talk about future regulation on electronic cigarettes, which is just, it's kind of mind-boggling. Like, how much worse can you get in Indiana than what passed this year? But this will be talking about whether or not electronic cigarettes should be defined as tobacco products, subject to smoking bans and e-cigarette taxation, which I guess is actually worse. It's sort of compounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically everything they did to us when we smoked, they want to do to us now that we vape. That's not really a shock. I mean, I think what's kind of cracked me up is all the stories in the news where they're saying 67% of children are exposed to e-cigarette advertising. So what you're saying is there's lots of children living with adults.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's to me, that stuff is ridiculous. Are you supposed to put blinders on your kids, or are they supposed to be better people because we infantilize the adults? I don't know.
Well, and see, and the one thing that they don't want to address is if your commercial gets FCC approval, there isn't a network out there that can refuse to sell you advertising time at the time you want it. Okay? So, back years and years and years ago, I was pregnant for my daughter, and I lived in Dallas, Texas, and I managed a bar. So, in other words, I got out of work at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I happened to go home and had some, I don't know, I think Star Trek The Next Generation reruns going.
Right.
And I fell asleep watching TV. And I wake up and there's cartoons on my television. Well, I didn't go to sleep watching cartoons. It just happens to be what was on when I woke up. The next thing you know, there is this commercial. And what it was a guy that was running for election in Dallas, Texas, and he was pro-life. They were using some god-awful images to try to make you think more of his pro-life stance. Okay? In the middle of fucking Saturday morning cartoons. Really? Really?
You wouldn't think that would...
Well, yeah. So, but I called in having a fit about this, and I guess, there's a lot of parents that have to sit and watch Saturday morning cartoons with their kids, and I get that. But I didn't think that this was appropriate commercial material in Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, Jan,
no, but
so bad. I called the news station. So,
but I mean, I guess from the other side too, does anybody remember when Green Smoke got dinked for advertising during iCarly?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's legitimate. You shouldn't run an e-cigarette ad on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
That's legitimate, but other stuff that they consider advertising is just ridiculous. I think they would like to enforce a sort of plain packs kind of thing with vaping. I don't even know how you could do that. When I say they, I mean, the big anti e-cig.
okay, well, and not to keep talking about my time spent in Texas, but I have to tell you, Dallas County was dry. Okay, and there's a lot of people that don't understand dry counties. There were bars there, but you had to be a member of this private club. Everything had to be a private club back then, and you couldn't advertise that you sold alcohol. You know how bars have neon lights in the windows, and you couldn't have any of that. Even like the beer delivery trucks had to be plain white panel trucks. They couldn't even say Budweiser on the side of them. It couldn't say Smirnoff, none of that. If you had a neon sign in your bar, it had to be 30 feet away from a window it was facing, or facing away from the window so that it couldn't be seen from the window. So I think,
What?
it was just kind of messed up. But do I understand the point that they're trying to make? Yeah, but to realistically think that a teenager or a kid is not going to know that alcohol exists and that that grown-ups drink it is fucking ignorant. And this is the same form of ignorance.
Well, no, and you're right. It absolutely is. It's prohibition through a back door. It's by using the children excuse that we'll be able to change the world, and that's simply not going to happen. I'm sorry, we derailed you, Alex. I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's okay. It actually made me think of something. I'm going to be probably traveling up to Montreal later this year, and I believe at least Quebec, not necessarily the rest of Canada,
Right.
but Quebec has some pretty aggressive anti-tobacco laws. That was the first place where I saw there is no. You walk into a dépanneur and it's a corner store, and everything's behind a plastic blinder. They have to lift it up to get the pack of cigarettes out, and you don't even. If I remember correctly, there's no branding on these blinders. They might be able to hand write like menthols are over here, like so where to point. But
Right.
It's other than that. And this is Canada, so they didn't necessarily have my brand when I was up there when I was still smoking.
Right.
So, and also everybody speaks French, and so it was kind of like I'm trying to explain to somebody who either speaks French or Chinese, like I want this particular brand, and all we can really understand is menthol. So I ended up getting a pack of cigarettes I didn't really like, but
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, so it's now, as I understand it, vape shops have been subject to a similar regulation, but there's a bit of a compromise. So once you're in the store, you can see all of the branding and there's marketing, but the windows have to be blacked out or mirrored or something like that, so that people on the street can't see in. So that'll be interesting to see exactly how that's being implemented.
Well, I mean, you've seen what happened with they went to plain packaging and then they enforced like the doors over everything in the stores. What has that done to tobacco?
Not a lot.
Yeah, people still use it,
Oh yeah.
and children are aware that people smoke.
Yes.
Okay, so
If
it's a
you judge
proposition
by-
that is nothing, basically.
I mean, you still have smokers saying they have kids asking them for cigarettes in Scotland.
I
Scottish
have
children,
property.
walk up to people, can I have a fag?
I need to apologize. Everybody that's listening to the CASAA update, I apologize if I offended anybody with my language. This is why I mute during this segment. I'm sorry.
We're all adults here.
It's not like you're not a CASAA member, Jeannie. I mean, you're welcome to speak during the updates. You know, and you've done a lot for us. Thank you. Yeah. It's just, I think the scope of tobacco control, big anti-vapor, I think it's all just running off the rails. You go from things that might be marginally successful to just insanely stupid proposals that do nothing but increase the cost for stores and eat into the profit base for selling the product. I think that's dangerous. That's a dangerous place to be. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
No, that's cool. There's just maybe to bring it back to legislation. That's boring, but there were sort of a handful of local alerts that I got over the past couple of weeks. I apologize for not getting some of these out. There were a few that were in California. There was like one in Utah, but I think people have been posting about stuff. There was something in Minnesota. But really, rather than dealing in the specifics here, and I apologize. I have a regular day job that demands my attention. For the first couple months of this year, it's like January, February into March. It's actually very slow at work, so I have a lot of downtime, and I can actually spend some of my downtime reading and writing and doing things that's not work related. But that's kind of disappeared. So I am very much behind and not as dialed in as I have been in the past. But just to reiterate, I know we say this just ad nauseum, but even though most state legislatures have adjourned for the year, everybody's local governments are still making law. So everything has slowed down a bit, but school's back in session, so anything can happen. And I'll try to follow up on stuff. The only kind of current one that I have that technically has not happened yet is tonight. Wheat Ridge, Colorado, is hearing Council Bill 22-2015, and this would include electronic cigarettes into their smoking in public places rules, which Colorado is another one of those states where, they've legalized the marijuanas, but now they're going after vapor products. So, whatever. So yeah. That's really all I got. It just to and we'll round it out with the share your story, and that was the other part. In case this was not clear in the instructions for the consumer reports thing, there's an opportunity there to share your brief story, a paragraph or slightly more, and then copy and paste that into our testimonials project, and you killed two birds with one stone. Or maybe killed is not the right word, but two birds. You got two birds, whatever.
Yeah, two in the hand. Yeah, you got two in your hand instead of one in your hand and one not in your hand, I guess.
One in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Yeah, or something. Or M&Ms don't melt in your hand. No, wait. Yeah, wait. They melt in your mouth and not in your hand. Sorry. So yeah. Well, I mean, you do an incredible amount for us, Alex. I don't know how you do it. But if you need help, just let me know. I'll do what I can.
Cool. I'm enjoying this lull a little too hard. So if back up to speed soon.
Well, batten down the hatches. Get ready. Legislation's coming.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess that's it for this evening. And for this update. Thank you for everything you do for us, Alex. And thank you to the people listening to these updates. If you're not already a member, please join us at CASAA.org. On the front page of CASAA.org, you can find a link to the Testimonials project. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Google Plus as CASAA Media. We're also on YouTube, and we're on Facebook as the official CASAA Facebook page. And we also have a group for just chatter. Well, not so much chatter. It's on topic stuff about legislation and things of that nature called We Are CASAA. So stop by and talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. HR 2058.
Yes.
Yeah. If you haven't, please follow the call to action on the CASAA website for HR 2058 and see if you can get your Congress critter to become a co-sponsor of said legislation. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all you do to help yourself save vaping. Have a good night. Bye, Alex.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.